The screams around the poolside cut through the heavy Lagos heat like a siren. Guests froze, some holding champagne flutes midair, others fumbling for their phones. Music from the live band cracked to silence as water splashed violently, soaking the nearest guests in expensive lace and ankara. Amoka fought the water, arms flailing, dress ballooning like a parachute under the surface. The swimming pool lights cast eerie glows on her face as she gasped, swallowing mouthfuls of chlorinated water. She had never learned to swim. And above her, laughing, was Tund, her husband of 15 years. His white kaftan clung to his broad shoulders, the gold embroidery glinting under the pool lights. Beside him, with one manicured hand resting on his arm, was Funk, the side chick Amoka had just found sprawled across his lap minutes earlier in the cabana, lipstick smeared, perfume sharp enough to choke. Funk smirked, her wine-colored gelly towering high, lips curling as she watched Amoka struggle. Tund. Amoka choked, her voice cracking. Help me. But Tund only raised his glass, looking down with cold amusement. You always wanted a splash at our anniversary, didn't you? Gasps rippled through the guests. Someone muttered, God forbid. At her own party. 2 waiters rushed forward with a life pole, dragging Amoka out coughing, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her once elegant blue lace gown clung to her like a drowned rag. Phones flashed. Videos were already hitting Instagram. Hashtag Lecky drama. Hashtag anniversary scandal. Hashtag billionaire love triangle. Funk leaned toward Tund and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. She looks like a wet chicken. Laughter broke out from a corner table. A cruel, sharp sound. Amoka trembled with rage and humiliation. Her chest heaved as she wrapped her arms around herself, dripping water onto the marble tiles. Guests murmured, forming little gossip clusters. And then, through the roaring in her ears, she heard it. Tund's voice, loud, careless, cutting through the whispers. Someone get her a cab, he said. She can't go back to my house like this. His house. The words hit her harder than the water had. Amoka turned slowly, shivering, her eyes locking on his. There was no apology. No trace of the man who once held her through childbirth, who once promised forever under the mango tree in her father's compound. Only ice. She took one shaky step forward, dripping water onto the marble floor like a trail of grief. This isn't over, Tund, she whispered, voice hoarse but steady. Not by a long shot. The guests went silent. Even the band stopped pretending to tune instruments. Tund smirked, swirling his champagne lazily. We'll see about that. And just like that, everything Amoka had built, her marriage, her dignity, her home, felt like it was tilting, cracking, about to collapse into the same water that had nearly claimed her. But beneath the humiliation burning her cheeks, another fire sparked quietly. Not of shame. Of revenge. 2 hours earlier, the evening had been a different story. Amoka had stood by the poolside in her blue lace gown, gold earrings swaying gently as she greeted guests. Lagos socialites, business tycoons, church elders, they had all come for their 15th wedding anniversary. The band played soft Afrobeats. Fairy lights reflected on the water. Children giggled as waiters weaved through the crowd with trays of asan and small chops. Amoka had searched for Tund through the glittering guests, smiling at everyone, her pride swelling. Their story had been the kind people envied. University sweethearts building an empire together. He owned construction companies across Lagos. She had left a banking job to raise their 2 children and manage the home. But tonight, she couldn't find him. Not until she pushed open the cabana curtains, and her whole world cracked. Baby, Tund had said lazily, Funk still on his lap, lipstick smears bright under the fairy lights. Baby. As though Amoka didn't exist. As though 15 years meant nothing. The words had ripped through her like broken glass. She had shouted. Guests had turned. Funk had laughed, tossing her Brazilian wig over one shoulder. And then. The push. The water. The humiliation. Now, dripping by the poolside, Amoka felt every eye on her. Pity. Judgment. Mockery. Funk slid her sunglasses onto her nose, though it was nearly 10 p.m. "Come, Tund," she said sweetly. "Let's get champagne. The night is still young." They walked away together. Amoka watched them go, her fists curling at her sides. The children were at home, waiting for cake, waiting for parents who were already breaking apart. Her phone buzzed. Messages flooded in. "Are you okay? We saw the video. Call me." She turned toward the gate, shivering in the night breeze, heels clicking against wet marble. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the raw hurt, something cold and sharp was forming. Something that whispered, "This is not the end." Back at the mansion later that night, Amoka stepped out of the taxi, dress still damp, makeup ruined. The house glowed warm under the lecky streetlights. Inside, Tund sat casually in the living room, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. "You embarrassed me," she said quietly. He snorted. "You embarrassed yourself, Amoka. Always dramatic. Always making a scene. You were cheating. And I'm a man," he said, finally looking up, eyes cold. "Men have needs. You should have stayed quiet." The words hit her like fresh slaps. For 15 years she had cooked his meals, raised his children, hosted his friends, prayed for his business deals. And this was her reward. "Go to bed," Tund said dismissively, returning to his phone. "We'll talk tomorrow." But Amoka didn't move. Something inside her had shifted the moment she crawled out of that pool. Tomorrow, she thought, he will regret every word. The next morning, Lagos bloggers were on fire. Lekki billionaire's anniversary turns to drama. Wife pushed into pool as side chick watches. Funk the Slay Queen breaks the internet. Tund left early for a meeting, whistling as though nothing had happened. Amoka sat at the dining table, phone buzzing, humiliation spreading like wildfire through the city. Her mother called, voice trembling. "My daughter, come home. Leave that man before he destroys you." But Amoka stared at the headlines, the comments, the memes. She wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. That evening, as the sun bled over the Lagos skyline, she waited in the living room, calm, quiet, a storm beneath the surface. Tund walked in smelling of expensive cologne, Funk trailing behind in tight jeans and arrogance. "You're still here." Funk smirked, glancing at Amoka. "I thought you'd packed by now." Amoka smiled faintly. "Oh, I will," she said softly. "But not the way you think." They laughed. But in Amoka's chest, the first seeds of revenge were already taking root. And outside, under the glow of streetlights, 2 men in plain clothes sat in a black SUV, cameras clicking softly as they photographed Tund walking into the house. The lawyer who had sent them the night before leaned back in his car across the street, eyes sharp. "Madam Amoka will be very interested in these pictures," he thought. Very interested indeed. The next morning, Tund would wake up to find his bank accounts frozen. But tonight, he slept peacefully beside Funk, not knowing the storm Amoka was about to unleash. The next morning, the sun rose over Lekki Phase 1, warm and golden, as though mocking the chaos in Amoka's heart. She sat at the dining table, the marble surface cold under her fingertips, scrolling through her phone. Everywhere she looked, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp statuses. It was the same story. Lekki anniversary shocker. Billionaire's wife humiliated at pool party. Funk the Slay Queen strikes again. Is this the end for Amoka and Tund? Her wedding pictures, once a symbol of love, now floated around the internet like a cruel joke. The Amoka who wore white lace and smiled under the church canopy 15 years ago seemed like a stranger. And Tund? He hadn't come home after the party. His phone was off. The children asked no questions, though they had heard whispers. Kayamika, their 13-year-old daughter, had seen some of the clips online and quietly deleted TikTok from her phone. David, only 10, kept glancing at his mother as though afraid she might break in front of him. But Amoka didn't cry. Not this time. Her mind was spinning backward, rewinding through the years like an old VHS tape, trying to find where everything had gone wrong. She had met Tund at the University of Lagos, back when he was only a broke engineering student with big dreams and a bigger smile. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but he had this way of looking at her as though she was the only person who mattered. They had studied together in the library, shared cold bottles of Fanta under the mango trees, whispered about the future in cheap cafes where the waiters already knew their names. When he graduated and got his first small job, he told her, "One day, Amoka, I'll give you the world." And she had believed him. They married in a church so packed people stood outside to watch. She remembered her father's proud smile, the choir singing, "All hail the power of Jesus' name," the gelly-wearing aunties spraying money as though Tund had already become the millionaire he wasn't yet. She remembered cooking in their first cramped apartment, the two of them laughing as rain leaked through the roof. She had believed in him so much she left a banking job when his construction business started growing. He needed someone to handle the home, he said. Someone to raise the kids while he chased contracts and traveled to Abuja and Port Harcourt for meetings. She had traded her heels for aprons, her briefcase for school runs. And at first, it seemed worth it. The money came. The cars. The house in Lekki with marble floors and a swimming pool big enough for parties like the one that had ended in disaster last night. But slowly, too slowly for her to notice at first, Tund had begun to change. The trips grew longer. The phone calls shorter. And then funk came. Amoka still remembered the first time she saw her, at one of those over-the-top Lagos weddings where the decor cost more than most people's houses. Funk had been all gloss and glitter, the kind of girl who knew how to tilt her head so the light caught her expensive weave just right. "Big sis," she had called Amoka that night with a too bright smile. "I've heard so much about you." She had hugged Amoka tightly, perfume suffocating, before sliding into the seat beside Tund. At the time, Amoka thought nothing of it. Lagos society was full of young women like Funk, bold, loud, everywhere. But then Funk started appearing too often. At business dinners. At birthday parties. At Tund's office when Amoka stopped by with lunch. And Tund, he had begun wearing new cologne. Buying new suits. Smiling at his phone too much. Now, sitting in the silent dining room, Amoka clenched her fists. She thought of the receipts she had found months ago. Gold bracelets, iPhones, hotel bills in Abuja where Tund had claimed to be meeting clients. She thought of the way Funk had smirked at the anniversary party, dripping with jewelry that Amoka now suspected was bought with her husband's money. And she thought of the way Tund had looked at her by the pool. Cold. Empty. As though 15 years and 2 children were nothing more than a line on yesterday's calendar. The front door banged open. Tund walked in, sunglasses on though it was barely 10 a.m., Funk trailing behind in ripped jeans and arrogance. Amoka stood. "Where were you?" Tund dropped his car keys on the table. "Out. Out." "Yes, out. Why are you questioning me?" He glanced at Funk, who smirked. "This is my house, Amoka. Don't forget that." Her voice shook. "Your house? I left my job to build this family, Tund. I gave you everything." "Stop shouting," he snapped, pouring himself juice. "You embarrassed me yesterday. Couldn't even act like a decent wife in public." Funk snorted softly, scrolling through her phone. Amoka turned to her. "You think this is funny?" Funk looked up, eyes full of mockery. "I think you should relax, big sis. Maybe go to the spa. Stress doesn't look good on you." The insult hung in the air like smoke. Amoka's hands trembled. She had once prayed for this marriage on her knees. But now, something inside her was breaking, and hardening. Later that evening, after Tund left for another meeting, Amoka sat on the bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above her. She could leave. Take the kids. Start over. But where would she go? The house, the cars, the businesses, all in Tund's name. Or so she thought. Because as she sat there, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Madam Amoka, I'm Lawyer Kahind. I have information about your husband. We need to talk." The next day, Amaka would sit across from the lawyer and learn that everything wasn't as Tund had made it seem. And for the first time since that poolside humiliation, she would feel a flicker of hope, and something darker. What do you think Lawyer Kahind will reveal? Should Amaka fight back or walk away? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next gripping chapter. Sunday morning sunlight spilled through the stained glass windows of Living Waters Church, painting the pews in bright splashes of red, blue, and gold. The choir's voices rose, full and steady, as worshippers swayed in their seats. Amaka walked in quietly with Kayamaka and David, the children dressed in their neat Sunday best. Her blue Ankara wrapper was simple compared to the lace and gelly extravagance Lagos churches were famous for. People turned when they saw her. Whispers floated through the congregation like restless birds. Is that not Madam Amaka? The one they pushed into the pool? Ah. I saw it on Instagram. The shame n. Phones slipped out discreetly, ready for more scandal. Amaka kept her chin high, guiding the children to a seat in the middle row. She didn't see Tund at first. Not until the usher led her forward, and she froze. There in the front pew, Tund sat in his white kaftan, looking as self-assured as ever. And beside him, head wrapped in gold gelly, makeup glowing like she had been carved from vanity itself, sat Funk. The side chick. In church. On the front row. Amaka felt the blood drain from her face. Funk saw her too, and smiled. A slow, mocking smile like someone savoring sweet wine. Tund didn't look at her at all. The choir kept singing, the pastor kept preaching, but Amaka barely heard any of it. Her children sat stiffly beside her, David clutching her arm. When the final prayer ended, she gathered her bag quickly, ready to leave before the murmurs grew louder. But Funk was faster. She stood, her heels clicking on the marble floor, and turned to Amaka with a voice just loud enough for the curious congregation. "Ah, big sis," she said sweetly, the words dipped in poison. "I didn't know ex-wives still come to the same church. It's good you're keeping the faith." Ex-wife. The word hit like a slap. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone coughed awkwardly. Amaka froze, humiliation burning through her chest. Funk wasn't done. She tilted her head with mock concern. "You should move on, you know. Tund has. Life is too short to be bitter." That was it. Something inside Amaka snapped. She stepped forward and before anyone could stop her, her palm cracked across Funk's face. The sound rang out like gunfire. The entire church went silent. Funk stumbled back, clutching her cheek in disbelief. "You will not disrespect me in God's house," Amaka said, voice shaking but loud enough for everyone to hear. The congregation exploded into murmurs. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Ah, this one will reach Instablog before afternoon." Tund finally stood, his face a storm. "Amaka, what is wrong with you?" Amaka turned to him slowly. "What is wrong with me? Or with the man who brought his mistress to church while his wife and children sit behind like strangers?" Funk hissed softly, tears smudging her mascara. "This is not over," Tund growled. Amaka leaned closer, her eyes blazing. "No. It's just beginning." By afternoon, clips of the slap were everywhere. Church drama in Lekki. Wife slaps side chick in front of pastor. Funk the Slay Queen loses round 1. Team Amaka or Team Funk? Who's right? Comment sections boiled with opinions. Leave the man, sis. He doesn't deserve you. Violence is never the answer, auntie. Funk asked for it, a beg. What nonsense. Through it all, Tund didn't call. When he finally came home late that night, Amaka was sitting in the living room, arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said. He didn't sit. "You embarrassed me. Again. You embarrassed this family the day you brought her into our lives." Tund's face hardened. "You need to pack your things, Amaka. By tomorrow." Her heart lurched. "What? This is my house. I want you out. I want a divorce." She stared at him, the man she had once loved so much, now looking at her like she was dirt on his shoe. He had planned this all along, she realized. The trips. The gifts. The arrogance. It was all leading here. Later that night, she called her mother, voice trembling. "He's kicking us out," she whispered. "Me and the children." Her mother cursed under her breath. "Over my dead body. Come home, Amoka. Come back to Enugu." But Amoka shook her head, staring at the mansion walls she had decorated with her own hands. No. She wouldn't leave empty-handed. The next morning, police cars arrived at the gate. Tund stood beside them with court papers in hand. Movers came, ready to drag out her things. The neighbors gathered, watching with eager eyes. Lagos loved drama that wasn't theirs. Amoka held her children close as the first box was carried out into the compound. Her entire life, reduced to cardboard and whispers. Then her phone buzzed. A message from lawyer Kahind. "Madam, I have what you need. Tund has made a big mistake. Meet me tomorrow. Alone." As the police moved through her home, Amoka felt a strange calm settle over her. Whatever Kahind had, it might be the key to turning this entire game around. And Tund didn't see it coming. What do you think the lawyer will reveal about Tund's secrets? Comment your thoughts below and share this with someone who loves drama. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. The mansion felt colder than usual the next morning. Amoka stood by the window, arms folded across her chest, watching as the movers carried out the last of her furniture. Rain clouds gathered over Lekki, heavy and dark, like the sky itself knew something was breaking inside her. Kayamaka clung to her arm. "Mommy, where will we go?" Amoka stroked her daughter's braids gently. "We'll be fine, my love. Just fine." But inside, she was boiling. 15 years of her life were being thrown out like old newspapers. The neighbors whispered behind half-closed curtains, phones recording everything. Even the gate man looked at her differently now, like loyalty came with a paycheck. And Tund? He stood under the porch in his crisp white shirt, arms crossed, watching it all like a king evicting peasants from his land. "Be quick," he barked at the movers. "I want everything cleared before noon." Amoka turned slowly to face him. Her voice was calm, too calm. "You'll regret this, Tund." He smirked. "The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." Funk appeared behind him, sunglasses on though the sun hadn't yet broken through the clouds. She carried a designer handbag the color of envy and leaned into Tund's arm like she owned the place. "Don't stress, baby," she said loud enough for Amoka to hear. "Some women are just not built for this kind of life." Amoka's nails dug into her palms. This kind of life. She had built this life. Brick by brick. Prayer by prayer. But she said nothing. Not yet. By evening, Amoka sat in a small, sparsely furnished apartment across town. The children huddled on a single bed while she unpacked plates into a tiny cupboard. Her phone buzzed again. "Madam Amoka, it's lawyer Kahind. Are you free tomorrow morning?" She typed back. "Yes. Tell me everything." The next day, she walked into Kahind's office, a modest building off Awolowo Road, far from the marble floors and chandeliers of Tund's empire. Kahind was a calm-looking man in his 40s with neat glasses and the kind of face that didn't give much away. "Madam Amoka," he said, standing to shake her hand. "I've been reviewing your husband's business records for weeks. What I found, it's bad for him. Good for you." Amoka sat, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Kahind slid a folder across the table. "Did you know most of his companies are still in both your names? Legally, you own 50% of everything." Amoka blinked. "What?" Kahind nodded. "And there's more. He's been moving large sums of money into a private account under Funk's name. We're talking millions, madam. Money from contracts awarded to his company when you were still signing documents as co-director." Amoka stared at the papers. Signatures. Bank transfers. Company seals. All with dates. All with proof. He thinks, Kahind continued, that because you left the business years ago, you have no rights. But the law doesn't see it that way. With the right moves, we can freeze his accounts before he even realizes what's happening. Amoka felt her pulse steady. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't drowning. She was standing on solid ground, and it was Tund who didn't know the storm coming his way. But she also knew something else. Tund was cunning. He wouldn't go down quietly. What about the children? She asked softly. Kahind leaned back. If we do this right, you can claim custody, the house, and half the assets. Maybe more if we prove he was using company funds illegally. Amoka thought of Funk's boutique in Lekki, the one splashed all over Instagram with its grand opening party and celebrity guests. Company funds, she repeated slowly. Bought with my husband's money. Or our money. Kahind smiled faintly. Exactly. That night, Amoka returned to the apartment with a folder full of secrets and a head full of plans. She tucked the children into bed, her heart aching as she watched them sleep on a mattress too small for dreams this big. This wasn't the life she had built for them. And she was going to take it back. 2 days later, Tund hosted a dinner at the mansion for business partners. The lights blazed. Laughter spilled out through open windows. Funk floated around in a glittering dress like she was auditioning for Real Housewives of Lagos. Amoka wasn't there. But the lawyer's petition was. It landed on Tund's desk the next morning. A court order to freeze every account bearing his name or linked to any marital assets. By noon, his phone calls to the bank went unanswered. His credit cards stopped working. And Funk, standing at the boutique register trying to pay for new inventory, was told her transaction had been declined. Tund stormed into the apartment that evening, rage twisting his face. What did you do, Amoka? He shouted. Amoka looked up from where she was calmly helping Kayamaka with homework. Taking back what's mine, she said softly. His fists clenched. This isn't over. Her eyes met his without fear. You're right. It's just starting. As Tund stormed out, his phone buzzed with another message, this time from his accountant. Sir, we have a bigger problem. The tax office is asking questions about the Abuja contracts. And Amoka? She was already planning her next move. What do you think Amoka should do next now that she has the upper hand? Comment below, share this with someone who loves drama, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. Tund paced the living room of the Lekki mansion like a man watching his empire crumble brick by brick. Funk sat on the couch in silk pajamas, scrolling through Instagram, pretending not to notice the storm brewing beside her. This woman has lost her mind, Tund growled, slamming his phone onto the table. Freezing my accounts? Who does she think she is? Funk smirked faintly. Technically, she's your wife. At least until you divorce her. Tund shot her a glare. Funk raised her hands in mock innocence. I'm just saying, baby. Maybe you should have handled things differently. Differently. His voice rose. After everything I gave her? The house, the cars, the house she built with you, Funk interrupted sharply, her voice suddenly cold. The cars she sacrificed her career for. The children she raised while you were busy playing Lagos big boy. The words hit harder than he expected. Funk had been enjoying the money and the lifestyle, yes. But now that the money was locked up, her tone was changing. Tund grabbed his car keys. I'm going to see Amoka. This madness ends today. Amoka was at lawyer Kahind's office when Tund barged in, fury etched across his face. You think you can destroy me? He roared. I made you, Amoka. She didn't flinch. No, Tund. We made each other. But you threw me away like trash. Now I'm taking back what's mine. Kahind calmly slid another document across the table. Mr. Tund, the court has granted Madam Amoka temporary control of all joint assets until this matter is settled. Tund's jaw dropped. What? Your accounts will remain frozen, Kahind continued, until the investigation into company funds is complete. I suggest you cooperate. It will look better in court. Amoka leaned forward, her voice steady. This didn't have to happen, Tund. But you pushed me into water and laughed while I drowned. Now you'll learn how it feels to lose everything. Tund slammed the door on his way out, rage vibrating through the walls. By the end of the week, the fallout began. First came the boutique. Funk had been bragging for months about her luxury store in Lekki Phase 1. The designer clothes, the celebrity customers, the champagne launch parties. But now, the landlord locked the doors for unpaid rent. Vendors demanded their money. Social media lit up with rumors. Funk's boutique gone? What happened to the Slay Queen's millions? Funk called Tund in tears. They closed my shop, she wailed. Do something. But Tund had bigger problems. The tax office sent letters about the Abuja contracts. Old business partners began distancing themselves, whispering about financial scandals. Even the bank seized one of his SUVs for unpaid loans he hadn't touched in months because Amoka's court order had tied up his accounts. His phone buzzed non-stop with bad news. And through it all, Amoka stayed silent. She focused on the children, enrolling them in a new school closer to her apartment. She started small, selling jewelry, catering weekend events with her sister, slowly rebuilding her independence while the legal battles raged on. But revenge was never far from her mind. Because every day brought a new headline about Tund's crumbling empire. One evening, as rain pounded the city, Amoka sat with Kahind going through more documents. You have enough evidence, Kahind said softly, to not just claim half his assets, but full custody of the children. The court will see the public humiliation, the financial recklessness, the affair. It all paints a very bad picture for him. Amoka nodded slowly. I want custody. And the house. My children will not grow up watching him parade mistresses through our home. Kahind hesitated. There's something else. He handed her another file, bank records showing Tund transferring millions overseas to an account in Dubai. He's trying to hide money, Kahind said. But if we move fast, the court can seize it before he succeeds. The next morning, another bombshell hit. Tund arrived at the bank to withdraw cash, only to be told his Dubai account was now under investigation too. By noon, he was trending on Twitter, Lekki big boy caught in financial scandal. Funk stopped taking his calls. Business partners cancelled meetings. And Amoka? She watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. But Tund wasn't finished. Late that night, he appeared at her apartment door, rain soaking his clothes, eyes blazing. You think you've won, he said, voice low and dangerous. This is my city, Amoka. My empire. You can't destroy me. Amoka met his glare calmly. I'm not destroying you, Tund. You did that yourself. For a moment, silence crackled between them like electricity. Then Tund leaned closer, his voice a whisper of threat. This isn't over. He turned and walked into the rain, leaving muddy footprints on the floor. The next morning, Amoka woke to police sirens outside her apartment. And for the first time, she wondered if Tund was desperate enough to do something reckless. The sirens outside wailed like a warning. Amoka rushed to the balcony, heart pounding. 2 police trucks were parked by the gate, lights flashing red and blue against the walls. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Children pressed faces to windows. Lagos loved nothing more than drama on a weekday morning. And in the middle of it all was Tund, pacing, shouting into his phone, rain dripping off his suit like he'd wrestled the storm itself. Officer, he barked. Search the place. She stole documents from my office. Amoka's chest tightened. Stole. She pushed through the growing crowd as 2 policemen approached her door. Madam Amoka, one said formally, we need to check your apartment. We received a complaint from Mr. Tund. What documents? She demanded. I haven't been near his office in months. Tund turned sharply, his face twisted with anger. You're destroying my name, freezing my accounts, humiliating me in public, and you think I'll just sit back? The officer glanced between them, clearly uncomfortable. Lagos police knew when they had walked into rich people's drama. "Sir," the second officer said carefully, "this is a civil matter, not criminal. We can't arrest her over company documents unless there's evidence." Tund cursed under his breath. Cameras were already out. Neighbors recording. Some blogger somewhere was going to upload this before lunchtime. Amoka crossed her arms, voice steady despite the hammering in her chest. "Search the apartment," she said coldly. "You won't find anything." 30 minutes later, the police left empty-handed. Tund stood in the rain, fists clenched, while neighbors whispered behind half-shut doors. "Ah, the mighty have fallen. See as police day follow him around now." Amoka stepped onto the balcony, eyes locked on his. "Next time you bring police to my door," she said clearly, "make sure you have proof. Because I will sue you for harassment." For a moment, Tund said nothing. Rain dripped from his chin. Then he pointed at her, voice low and trembling with fury. "This is not over, Amoka. I will take the children. I will take everything." She didn't flinch. "You already lost everything, Tund. You just don't know it yet." 2 days later, the co-parenting war began. Tund showed up at the children's new school unannounced, demanding to see them. When the principal refused because he wasn't listed as the primary guardian under the new court order, Tund caused a scene in the parking lot. Students gathered. Teachers tried to calm him. Someone filmed the entire thing, of course. By evening, the video hit social media. Businessman Tund causes scene at children's school. Security called to calm situation. The comments were brutal. "This man is finished. Leave the children out of your mess, ogre. Where's Funk the Slay Queen? Obi she don run." Funk, in fact, had run. After her boutique's closure and the frozen accounts, she stopped answering Tund's calls. Her Instagram suddenly shifted from luxury bags and champagne brunches to cryptic quotes about choosing peace over drama. Meanwhile, Amoka kept moving silently. She filed for full custody with lawyer Kahind, citing the public incidents, financial recklessness, and emotional instability Tund was now displaying for the entire city to see. "We have enough," Kahind told her calmly, sliding yet another folder across his desk. "The court will see the videos, the eviction, the affair, the financial documents. This case is building itself." Amoka nodded slowly. "And the house?" Kahind smiled faintly. "If things keep going this way, Madam Amoka, even the house in Lekki will be yours before this ends." By the end of the week, another scandal hit. A popular Lagos blogger leaked audio recordings of Tund shouting at a contractor about moving the rest of the money before the tax people find it. The story spread like wildfire. Leaked tapes suggest fraud in Tund's company deals. Sponsors pulled out. Banks froze more assets. And at the center of the storm, Amoka remained silent, watching his empire collapse under the weight of his own arrogance. One evening, as the rain returned to Lagos skies, Tund appeared again at her apartment gate. This time, he wasn't shouting. He was trembling. "You win," he said, voice hoarse. "Unfreeze the accounts. I'll give you anything you want." Amoka studied him through the bars. "Anything. Name it," he whispered. "The house, the cars. Just leave me something before they ruin me completely." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, a small, cold smile touched her lips. "I don't want your cars, Tund," she said softly. "I want your pride. And I'm not done yet." The next morning, Tund received a court summons. Full custody hearing, fraud investigation, and potential asset seizure all scheduled for the same week. And Lagos was watching. The courtroom was packed by 9 a.m. Lagos journalists lined the back row, cameras ready. Curious spectators whispered as the case list rolled out, everyone waiting for the drama they knew was coming. Amoka versus Tund Adebayo. It was the talk of the city. Tund walked in wearing a navy blue suit, the same charm he once used to win contracts now sitting on his face like a mask. But beneath it, his eyes were restless, darting toward the door as if expecting someone to save him. Funk wasn't there. She hadn't been around for weeks now, not since the boutique shut down and the bank froze her accounts too. Word on Instagram was she had moved on to a politician in Abuja. But Lagos had moved on to Tun's disgrace. Amoka entered quietly, wearing a simple grey gown, head high. No jewelry. No flash. Just dignity. The murmurs began immediately. That's her. The wife he pushed into the pool. She looks calmer than I expected. Those are the dangerous ones. Quiet but deadly. Amoka ignored them all, sitting beside lawyer Kahind, who had a neat stack of documents, audio recordings, and court orders ready to roll out like a war drum. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The case began. First came the videos, the eviction with police cars at the gate, Tun shouting at the children's school, the church scandal where Funk called Amoka ex-wife, before the slap heard across Lagos. The courtroom gasped, murmurs rising like waves until the judge banged his gavel for silence. Then came the financial records, transfers to Funk's boutique, hidden Dubai accounts, unpaid taxes, contracts under investigation. Tun shifted in his seat, sweat beading on his forehead. Objection, my lord, his lawyer said weakly. These matters are under separate investigation. Overruled, the judge said calmly. Every detail painted Tund not just as a reckless husband, but as a man spiraling out of control while his wife held the family together. When Amoka took the stand, her voice was steady. I am not here to destroy him, she said softly. I just want custody of my children, a safe home for them, and what is rightfully ours after 15 years of marriage. Tun's lawyer tried to shake her. Madam, did you not slap Miss Funk in church? Amoka met his eyes without flinching. I defended myself after public humiliation. That slap was the least of what I could have done. Even the judge hid a smile behind his papers. By noon, the ruling came down like thunder. Temporary full custody to Amoka. Freezing of all marital assets until the fraud investigation ended. And permission for Amoka to return to the Lekki mansion with the children until the final hearing. Gasps filled the room. Journalists rushed out to post headlines. Wife wins big in custody hearing. Businessman Tund faces fraud probe. From Lekki big boy to Lagos scandal. The fall of Tund Adebayo. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as Amoka walked to her car with the children. Reporters shouted questions. Madam Amoka, how do you feel about today's ruling? Will you take over your husband's businesses? She said nothing. But the faint smile on her lips was enough for tomorrow's headlines. Tund didn't leave the courthouse immediately. He sat on a bench in the hallway, phone buzzing non-stop with bad news. One of his contractors had pulled out of a major project. The tax office scheduled a new hearing. And his lawyer leaned over with a pale face and whispered, Sir, there's talk of possible arrest if the fraud case sticks. Tund rubbed his temples. Just months ago, he had everything. Money, power, respect. Now it was all slipping like water through his fingers. That evening, Amoka returned to the Lekki mansion with Kayamaka and David. The children ran through the halls laughing, their voices echoing off marble floors that had felt like a tomb since the day they were evicted. For the first time in weeks, Amoka breathed. But she knew Tund wouldn't stay silent. Men like him never did. And she was right. Because late that night, as Lagos traffic roared outside and the mansion lights glowed softly, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Madam, be careful. Tund is planning something. He's desperate now. Amoka stood by the window, phone in hand, wondering what Tund was about to do, and how far he was willing to go now that everything was collapsing around him. The warning message replayed in Amoka's mind all night. Be careful. Tund is planning something. He's desperate now. She sat by the window of the Lekki mansion, lights off, listening to the distant hum of Lagos traffic. Rain streaked down the glass, the sound mixing with the soft breaths of her children sleeping in the next room. Desperate men were dangerous men. And Tund was cornered now. Money frozen, reputation in shambles, funk gone, the children legally under Amokha's custody. What would he do next? By morning, the answer came. Not with Tund himself, but with the arrival of 2 unmarked black SUVs outside the mansion gates. Amokha watched from the balcony as men in dark suits stepped out, their faces hard. One carried a brown envelope. The gate man argued with them briefly before letting them in. One of the men approached Amokha calmly. "Madam, this is from the court," he said, handing her the envelope. "Mr. Tund Adebayo has filed an emergency motion. He wants full custody returned to him immediately." Amokha's stomach dropped. On what grounds? The man didn't answer. He only handed her another document, this one thick with printed photos. Her hands shook as she flipped through them. Pictures. Of her. Meeting with lawyer Kahind late at night. Sitting at cafes talking with him. One photo of Kahind's hand resting briefly on her shoulder as they looked over papers together. The angle made it look like something else. Amokha's chest tightened. "This is nothing," she said sharply. "He's my lawyer." But the man only shrugged. "Mr. Tund claims you're having an affair. He says you're an unfit mother." By noon, the story hit social media like wildfire. Leaked photos. Wife of businessman Tund Adebayo allegedly having affair with lawyer. Is Madam Amokha as innocent as she looks? Comment sections exploded. Women SEF. So she gets side guy all along. I knew there was more to this story. She's still better than Tund. At least she didn't push anyone into a pool. Amokha slammed her phone down, fury boiling in her chest. This was Tund's plan, to drag her name through the mud, to twist the truth until the public doubted her, until the court questioned her fitness as a mother. The next day in court, Tund's lawyer smirked as he handed the judge the photos. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "this shows Madam Amokha's questionable behavior while the children are in her care. We believe custody should be reconsidered." Amokha stood immediately. "This is nonsense. Kahind is my lawyer. Those pictures are taken out of context." But the judge only frowned, flipping through the photos silently. For the first time since this began, Amokha felt control slipping through her fingers. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like flies. "Madam Amokha, are you having an affair with your lawyer? Do you deny the allegations?" She pushed through them silently, jaw tight, while cameras flashed and microphones shoved toward her face. This was exactly what Tund wanted, to turn public opinion, to humiliate her like he had at the pool, at the church, at the eviction. But Amokha wasn't done. Not yet. That evening, she sat in Kahind's office, the photos spread out on the desk between them. "They're fake," Kahind said flatly. "Edited. Badly too. But it might be enough to cause trouble in court if we don't fight back." Amokha clenched her fists. "He wants war? Fine. Then we give him war." Kahind leaned back slowly. "There's one card we haven't played yet. The Dubai account records. The tax evasion proof. If we release them now, the fraud investigation will go public before the next custody hearing." Amokha hesitated. "That will destroy him completely." Kahind's eyes were cold. He already threw the first stone. 2 days later, Lagos woke up to a bombshell headline. Exclusive, leaked financial records tie Tund Adebayo to offshore fraud scheme. News outlets ran with it. TV stations picked it up. Hashtags trended. By afternoon, Tund's company board announced an emergency meeting to remove him as CEO. And by evening, the EFCC, Nigeria's anti-fraud agency, had opened an official investigation. Tund stormed into Amokha's compound at night, face twisted with rage, rain plastering his shirt to his skin. "You did this," he shouted, voice cracking. "You ruined me." Amokha stood at the door, calm despite the storm. "No, Tund. You ruined yourself the day you pushed me into that pool." His chest heaved. I will burn everything before I let you win. He turned sharply, disappearing into the rain before she could answer. The next morning, news broke that Tund had vanished. Some said he fled Lagos. Others whispered he was plotting something darker. And Amoka knew, this wasn't over yet. What do you think Tund will do now that his empire is gone and the law is after him? Comment your thoughts below, share this story with someone who loves drama, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. The news spread through Lagos like Harmattan fire. Tund Adebayo missing after fraud allegations. Businessman wanted by EFCC disappears before questioning. Wife at center of scandal maintains silence as drama unfolds. Social media boiled with theories. Maybe he ran to Ghana. No, this is Lagos. He's hiding somewhere close. EFCC go catch him. Just watch. Amoka watched it all quietly from the Lekki mansion. She wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because desperate men were dangerous men. And Tund had nothing left to lose. 3 nights later, Amoka returned home from a church vigil with the children. Rain hammered the streets, thunder rolling across the sky like angry drums. As she pulled into the driveway, she noticed the gate man standing stiffly, eyes darting toward the house. "Madam," he said nervously, "I think someone's inside." Amoka's stomach dropped. She hurried the children upstairs, locking them in their room before slowly stepping toward the living room. Lightning flashed. And there he was. Tund. Sitting on the couch like he owned the place, though the law had stripped him of everything. "Hello, wife," he said, voice low, almost calm. "Miss me?" Amoka froze. "What are you doing here?" Tund leaned back, rainwater dripping from his jacket onto the floor. His eyes were red, wild, like a man pushed too close to the edge. "You ruined me, Amoka," he said softly. "My business, gone. My reputation, gone. Funk left. Even the children, they look at me like I'm the villain." "You are the villain," she said coldly. "You pushed me into that pool. You threw me out like trash. And you thought there'd be no consequences." He slammed his fist on the table, making her flinch. "I built everything," he shouted. "The house, the cars, the empire." "With my help," she snapped. "With my name on half the documents. You forgot that part." For a moment, the only sound was rain pounding the roof. Then Tund leaned forward, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I want it back, Amoka. The money. The house. The children. All of it." Amoka met his eyes steadily. "You can't have it. The court already ruled. The law is watching you, Tund. The EFCC is watching you." His laugh was bitter, broken. "The law." He shook his head. "Lagos law is slow. Fear is faster." He stood suddenly, towering over her. "I can make you disappear, Amoka. Just like that." Before she could answer, headlights cut across the window. 2 black SUVs rolled into the compound, engines rumbling. Tund stiffened. Voices shouted outside. Then, the sound of boots on wet pavement. "EFCC," someone yelled. "Mr. Tund Adebayo, you are under arrest." Chaos erupted. Officers swarmed the living room, weapons raised. Tund bolted for the back door, slipping on the wet tiles as shouts filled the house. Amoka grabbed the children upstairs as officers chased him into the compound. Rain poured. Thunder crashed. And under the harsh beam of flashlights, Tund was slammed against the hood of a black SUV, handcuffed as neighbors peeked from windows, recording everything on their phones. The once untouchable Lekki big boy dragged into the rain like a common criminal. But even as they shoved him into the vehicle, Tund twisted to glare at Amoka standing in the doorway. "This isn't over," he shouted, rain running down his face like tears. "You'll regret this, Amoka. You'll regret everything." The SUV door slammed. Engines roared. The convoy disappeared into the stormy night, leaving only tire tracks and whispers behind. Back inside, Amoka held her children close. It was over. Or so she thought. Because the next morning, Lagos woke up to a headline that froze her blood. Tunde Adebayo claims wife orchestrated fraud scheme, says he has evidence. Amoka stared at the newspaper, heart hammering. If Tunde had planted evidence against her before his arrest, this war wasn't finished. Not yet. What do you think will happen now that Tunde is trying to drag Amoka down with him? Comment your thoughts below, share this story with someone who loves drama, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the final chapter. The headlines wouldn't stop. Tunde Adebayo alleges wife masterminded fraud scheme. Businessman claims he has proof against Amoka. Drama in Lagos. Marriage scandal takes shocking turn. Social media exploded. So Madam was behind it all along. Maybe Tunde is lying. Lagos men can say anything when they fall. This story is sweeter than Nollywood. Amoka sat in the Lekki mansion's living room, phone buzzing non-stop. Journalists camped outside the gate. Neighbors whispered as though she was a criminal already. And somewhere in a detention cell, Tunde was plotting his last desperate move. 2 days later, she was summoned to court. The courtroom buzzed like a restless beehive. Tunde entered in handcuffs, but his head was high, his suit pressed like he still had power. His lawyer carried a brown folder like it held the secrets of the universe. Your Honor, the lawyer began smoothly, we have evidence linking Madam Amoka to offshore accounts tied to the fraud investigation. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge raised an eyebrow. Proceed. The lawyer opened the folder and froze. Because the papers were blank. Completely blank. Confusion spread like wildfire. Where are the documents? The judge demanded. The lawyer stammered. My lord, there must be a mistake. We had files. Lies, Amoka's lawyer, Kahind, said coldly, rising to his feet. My lord, the EFCC has already traced every fraudulent account directly to Mr. Tunde Adebayo. We have bank records, voice recordings, even his emails instructing funds to be moved overseas. He handed a thick stack of real evidence to the judge. The courtroom erupted. Journalists scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed. And for the first time, Tunde's face cracked. The EFCC director himself took the stand next. All investigations, he said firmly, show Mr. Tunde Adebayo acted alone. Attempts to implicate his wife were deliberate fabrications. Fabrications, the judge repeated sharply. Yes, my lord. Fake evidence planted by Mr. Adebayo before his arrest. Our forensic team traced the forgeries back to his own office computer. Tunde shot to his feet. They're lying. It was Amoka. She ruined me. Silence, the judge thundered, gavel slamming. By noon, the ruling came down like Judgment Day. Fraud charges upheld. Properties seized. Foreign accounts confiscated. And a 7-year prison sentence for Tunde Adebayo. The courtroom exploded into chaos as officers surrounded him. You can't do this to me, Tunde shouted, struggling as they dragged him out. Amoka, you'll regret this. But his words were drowned out by reporters shouting headlines into microphones. Lekki big boy falls. Tunde Adebayo sentenced for fraud. Wife cleared of all charges as husband faces jail time. 3 months later, the Lekki mansion echoed with children's laughter again. Amoka walked through the halls, no longer heavy with fear or shame. The court had granted her full ownership of the house, custody of the children, and half of Tunde's remaining assets once the government auctions were done. The rest would go to repay the companies and people he had defrauded. Justice at last. Funk tried to call once. Amoka ignored it. The Slay Queen had vanished from Lagos parties after the boutique scandal. Last anyone heard, she was selling handbags on Instagram to survive. Poetic justice had a sense of humor. One evening, as the sun melted into the Lagos lagoon, Amoka stood on the balcony sipping zobo while Kayamaka and David chased each other across the lawn. She had been humiliated, betrayed, dragged through the mud. But she was still standing. Stronger, wiser, and free. The last headline came a week later. Tunde Adebayo collapses in prison after appeal denied. Lagos moved on to the next scandal. But Amoka didn't. She used part of the settlement money to open a foundation for women leaving abusive marriages, giving them legal and financial support like she once wished she had. Because revenge might have ended the marriage. But purpose built a new life. If this story touched your heart and showed you the strength of resilience, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping stories like this. What would you have done if you were Amoka? Comment below.